So welcome all. As you have already seen about the clocks in the earlier video, today we are seeing something about the Lamport's clock, where we are actually trying to understand uh, what can be a logical ordering, so that without a clock we could understand that these events have occurred in a particular order. So there is something called happen before relationship. So what is the issue? What actually matters to us? What actually usually matters is not that all processes agree on exactly what time it is, but that they agree on the order in which the event occurred. So we actually need a notion of ordering. So the happen before relationship, what it says is, if A and B are two events in the same process and A comes before A comes before B, then we should keep this in mind, and this system should store this information that event A occurred before B. If A is the sending of a message and B is the receipt of a message, in that case it should always happen that A has occurred before B. So if A has occurred before B, happened before B, and B has happened before C, if it is known, if it is understood, then we can directly say by transitive property that A has happened before C. That is the thing. So one thing is very well known for two different things, that we can understand that A has happened before B, and similarly we can also may be aware of that B has happened before C. So it will be very simple to conclude that A has happened before C. So this actually introduces a partial ordering of events. So this partial ordering of event is helpful in understanding this Lamport clocks. So this partial ordering of event in a system with concurrently operating processes. Now, logical clocks. What is the problem? How do we maintain a global view of on the system's behavior that is consistent with the happen before relationship? Okay. Actually, we don't want a clock. We will maintain a state and basis of on these happen before relationship. If we are able to maintain this information that this event occurred before the particular event, in that case we will be able to show what is happening, right? So means we can order the events, and that is what we need. Okay. So they are saying we can attach a timestamp. Attach a timestamp clock E, event of for event E. So this will satisfy these following properties. First property is, if A and B are the two events in the same process and A happened before B, then we demand that the timestamp of A should be less than timestamp of B. Second property says, if if A corresponds to a sending message M and B to receipt of the message, in that case timestamp of a sending message should be less than timestamp of receiving message. That is what we should this property should be there. Now, how to attach the timestamp? You don't have a global clock, right? If you don't have a global clock, you have to maintain some consistency with the logical clocks, right? You will have to understand the logical clocks. Can it be possible to have a logical clocks per process? Let us see how this can be done. What you can do is, each process, assume process Pi. So each process Pi maintains a local counter Ci and adjusts this counter. So for each new event that takes place within Pi, Ci is incremented by 1. Okay, no problem. So each time a message M is sent by a process Pi, the message receives a time stamp of that particular event. Okay. Whenever a message M is received by a process Pj, so Pj adjusts its local counter Cj to maximum of Cj and timestamp of M. Okay. Then executes step 1. What was the step 1? For each new event that takes place, you will increment your counter. So you will increment it and pass it to the passing this M to the application. So here a few things you have to consider, that property P1 is satisfied. How it is satisfied? By 1. You are always incrementing 1, right? And property P2 is satisfied by 2 and 3. How? Because it is saying that the sending message and the receiving message, we are calculating the maximum thing. So this always it will happen that the sending message will have timestamp lower than the timestamp of the receiving message. Okay. It can still occur that two events happen at the same time. Avoid this by breaking ties through process IDs. If you have process IDs, you can use these things. So now what you can do is see the logical clocks. Process P1, P2, P3. Consider these three processes with event counters, right? Now these events may be operating at different rates. So what will happen? See here, message M1 sent at 6 and received at 16, no issues. M2 sent at 24 and received at 40. Message 3 sent at 60 from P3 and received at 56, something like this. Now you will see here some adjustments. Here P2 adjusts its clock according to the something it received from P3. Because you can see here what happened. It was sending at 60 and receiving at 56. It is not thing. So accordingly, since it was 60, so it is adjusting it to 61. Similarly, it is being sent at 69 something, and accordingly it will reach at one more than the 69. That is the thing. So in this way, this logical clock will work. So these adjustments are implemented in middleware, right? So what will happen? So what happens at middleware? Actually, when this information it sends this message, what will happen? Local clocks are adjusted, and when this message is received, then also this local clock is adjusted and the message delivered to the application. That is the thing which is done at middleware. Now if you consider, let me show you about the example. Suppose there is a process P1 which in this I should say these are the databases. You have two replication of database, so updates are being done. Now updates should be done in the same order. So what will happen? P1 adds $100 to an account. Initial value assume 1000 it was. P2 increments account by 1%. There are two replicas. So what will happen? If at all there is a proper synchronization, you will get a good result. If at all you don't have a proper synchronization, then what will happen? In replica 1, what can happen? You will get something 1111. huh? And here in replica 2 you will get 110, because these two processes may happen one after another, right? If at all they are properly synchronized, then what will happen? One event will occur and after that another event will occur, right? So both will be having the same value. So what you need to do is, process pi sends a time stamped message mi to all others. The message itself is put in a local queue, qi. So any incoming message at pj is queued in qj according to its timestamp and acknowledged to every other process. Then what will happen? This pj passes a message mi to its application. When it passes, if mi, this timestamped message, is at the head of the qj, and second, for each process pk there is a message mk in qj with a larger timestamp. So the thing is, this timestamp of mi is minimum, right? That is the thing, and you have to understand that this communication is reliable and fi first in first out order, है then it will actually work. Okay, Lamport clock's mutual exclusion. So here actually, if you want to see, there are some function definitions where it is saying that you have request queue, current logical clock, increment, here is request to enter. Okay, so here you will increment the clock, append the request and sort the queue and then send the request, right? If you want to allow to enter, in that case you will just increment the value and permit, right? If you are releasing, then what will you do? Remove all the allows and copy to new queue and increment the clock value, and then you will release, right? Allowed to enter means to see who has sent a message, and accordingly you will allow them. Other thing, if you want to receive something, then he will pick up a message, adjust the clock and increment, append and enter the request, and unconditionally actually allow it, right? Then you will also append the allow in that queue, and what will happen? Just remove the first message and sort the sort and clean up. Okay. So now you have to see something about the Lamport's clock for mutual exclusion, right? Now, how it is similar to the total order multiclassed. So with total order multiclassed, all processes build identical queues, delivering message in same order. Mutual exclusion is about agreeing in which order processes are allowed to enter a critical section. So it is something like this, where you have to find out the ordering of the process. So let me tell you about the vector clocks, that these Lamport clocks do not guarantee that the timestamp of A is always less than timestamp of B. So that A is causally preceded B. Sorry, A causally preceded B. So You remember this example where concurrent message transmission can be there, where M1 is transmitted, M2 and M3 is being transmitted as at 32 and receives at 50. M4 is being transmitted as from 60 at received at 61. From 69 M5 is transmitted, so it will be received at 70. So what your observation is for these two messages, if you think we are talking about causally preceded. So event A has occurred where M1 is received at t is equal to 16, okay, and M2 is sent at t is equal to 20. So you can understand that something is happening, but you cannot conclude that A causally preceded B. Why? Because it is not known actually. For different processes you cannot say what is happening. Here in this this thing, it started at 60 and it may have been received at 54 only, if you remember, right? So the time stamp of this process and this process are different. So here it was time stamped 20. You cannot say it was after 16 or before 16 or maybe simultaneously. So this 16, the 16 in this process and 16 in this process are different. So you cannot conclude that A causally preceded B. Now, what is causal dependency? See, we say that B may causally depend on A if time stamp of A is less than time stamp of B, with two more things. For all k, time stamp of A, k is less than equal to time stamp of B, k. And there exists at least one index k dash for which time stamp of A, k dash is less than time stamp of B, k dash. So this is something about causal dependency. Now there is something called precedence, and it is different from dependency. So what is precedence and how it is different from dependency? We say that A causally precedes B, okay. B may causally depend on A. So this is how we say dependency and precedence. A causally precedes B, however B may causally depend on A. Understand the word may which is being used here. B may causally depend on A, as there may be information from A that that is propagated into B, okay. So this is something. How do you capture this causality in this vector clock? For each process Pi, you have to maintain something. What is maintained? A vector clock VCI. So vector clock will maintain the logical timestamps. I mean this information of what happened. So VCI I is the local logical clock at process Pi, and if VCI j is equal to k, then Pi knows that k events have occurred at Pj. Okay. Now how to maintain this vector clock? Before executing any event, you will just increment it. Increment by 1, right? And when process Pi sends a message M to Pj, it sets M's timestamp equal to VCI after having executed step 1, means after incrementing. Now upon the receipt of a message M, process Pj sets VCJK to maximum of these two values, maximum of this VCJK and a timestamp of M, k. So this is done for each k, after which it executes step 1, which is incrementation, and then delivers the message to the application. So this is how it is done in here, how causality is captured in the vector clocks. Now if you see this thing, suppose these are three processes, P1, P2, P3. So what is happening? M1 is being sent from P2. So here you are maintaining this vector 0, 1, 0, which means you are having timestamp 1 at process 2. ठीक है ना? Some event occurred at process 2. Now at some event occurred at process P1, you incremented this first thing 1, 1, 0, right? Nothing has happened till now at process P3. So at this time what happens? Nothing has happened as process P3. At P2 one event has already occurred, so 1, and here it is a second event where message 2 is being sent. Okay, here. Then what happens here? 2, 1, and 1 event occurred at process P3, where now this value is 2, 1, 1. Now here 3, 1, 0. It is 3, 1, 0, which means this is the third event at process P1. Till now one event has occurred at P2 and 0 event has occurred at P3. Now after that M3 is being sent, so 4 event has occurred at P1, 1 event and 0 event at P3. Okay, for this message 420, 430, and when it receives at P3, so what happens? You get P3 2. This is one example. Another example can be here, where we have changed something, where this M4 is being sent at 230 and received at 231, right? And M3 is being sent at this thing, M2. Okay, we are changing with M2 now. So M2 is being sent at 410 and 432. So the two things that we are checking here, you can say two conditions. Timestamp of M2 is 210 and M4 is 430. So timestamp of M2 is less than M4. Yeah, 2 is less than 4, 1 is less than 3. Okay, yes. Timestamp of M2 is greater than M4? No. So in that case, M2 may causally precede M4. No problem. But in the second case, 4, 1, is it less than 2, 3? No. Is it greater than 2, 3? No. So M2 and M4 may conflict. Either it should be both more than or both less than, right? That is the thing. Okay. All less than, all greater than. So in that case, now you have understood that in this way, you can say that one message M2 is may causally precede M4. So causally ordered multicasting. Now you have observed that a message is being delivered only if all causally preceding messages have already been delivered. Okay, so this is something that we have to keep in mind. And how adjustments are being made? PI increments vector clock I, event I, only when sending a message, and PJ adjusts VCJ when receiving a message. Very good. So this is how we can change VCJ J. So we actually do not effectively change this VCJ J. So PJ postpones delivery of M until timestamp of M I is equal to VCI plus VCJKI plus 1, and timestamp of mk is less than all k, for all k VCI k. So in this way we enforce the causal communication, causal I should say, causal communication, that something should happen only after this minimum is getting, you know. So VC3 is 0, 2, 2. Timestamp of m is 130 if at all this thing is for process P1. So the question is, what information does P3 have and what will it do when receiving m from P1? So actually it is talking about this VC3, just one example, that if this vector process 3 has a clock, and somehow sometime if at all VC3 value is 022, timestamp is 130 for process P1. So what information does P3 have and what will it do when receiving message m? So it will understand, it will compare these two values, it will compare these two values and try to understand whether it has to send this message to the application or not. When it will send only if these two conditions were satisfied. Timestamp should be minimum, as well as it should be greater than VCI. So you can see this 3 is already greater and this 0 is not greater, so it will wait for this thing until it becomes 2, then it will send it. So now we are coming for mutual exclusion. Let me tell you this mutual exclusion in next video.